Been an overcast Saturday here in Cincinnati, but we will have baseball. We will start on time here at Great American Ballpark. The middle game of this three-game series, the Reds and the Seattle Mariners here on Fox Sports Ohio. And hi, and a pleasant good afternoon, and welcome to Reds Baseball. Jim Kelch along with Chris Welsh here at GABP. Reds try to bounce back from a loss last night in Game 1. Here in Game 2, they will go with right-hander Matt Latos, Chris, who has 7 wins on the year, could have more, save for blown saves, and recently not much run support.
Well, not much run support, that's for sure. Maybe better run support than he would have. He would be an all-star, no doubt about it. I mean, he's pitched well enough, and you hope to get a kind of an outing out of him today that is very indicative of how he's pitched this year.
Latos will be opposed today by right-hander Jeremy Bonderman. This is a young man who missed the last 2 years due to injury. He had a shoulder issue. He had Tommy John surgery. Signed as a free agent this year with Seattle.
Well, he's a guy that they hope to get some serviceability out of. He's been a long time on the disabled list. He's had shoulder surgery, elbow surgery, as you said, and he's beating the odds by being able to come back now.
Now, Latos will go to the mound today to start this game for the Reds, but if he needs relief help, boy, this bullpen really has been doing a very good job as of late. This is a bullpen that last year had the best ERA in the big leagues, and lately are showing signs of doing exactly that again.
Well, the Reds have won 3 out of the last 4 games, and a lot of it has to do with how good that bullpen has been. You see the numbers on it: Sam LeCure, Alfredo Simon, even Parch and Manny Parr have come in situations that they're not used to being into, and they've really contributed. But those numbers right there, any bullpen in the league would be lovely to have those behind them.
Well, we'll see how it goes here this afternoon. Middle game of this 3-game series, the Reds and the Seattle Mariners, interleague baseball from Great American Ballpark. All right, we'll step aside. When we come back, Joey Votto. He's at the point this year where he went down a year ago, 86 games into the season.
And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Cincinnati Reds.
Hey, you see that cloud cover we've been talking about? It's been hanging around most of this day on Saturday, July the 6th, and figures to be around most of the afternoon. Let's take a more in-depth look at today's weather for this afternoon's game, brought to you by your Tri-State Orthopedics. Here's Josh Knight from WKRC Channel 12.
After a very wet Saturday morning, it does look like things are going to start to break down a bit for us. We're still going to have scattered showers and thunderstorms throughout the afternoon and into this evening. So for the Reds, starting at 4 o'clock, around 77, just going to be dodging some of those thunderstorms. So have to watch for that, but otherwise it does look better by later on today. Let's go Reds.
All right, Josh, that's good news indeed. Let's take a look at our number 3 hitter in the Reds lineup, Joey Votto. There's his career numbers, closing in on 150 career home runs. He's starting today 3rd in the National League in hitting at 325. And Joey Votto, it was a year ago that Votto went down with that injury right around the mid-80s mark in the season when he hurt that knee sliding out in San Francisco. This is the breakdown of where he was a year ago after 86 games versus where he is this year after 86 games. Pretty close in terms of all of these numbers. Average a little higher last year, as was the on-base percentage. Home runs a little bit more this year. RBIs a little bit more last year. But by and large, in the same range a year ago after 86 as he is this year after 86 games. It's the middle game of this 3-game series. Matt Latos goes for the Reds. He comes in at 7-2. Jeremy Bonderman at 1-2 for Seattle. Ohio is brought to you by the Ford F-Series trucks, the best-selling truck in America, 36 straight years. By Cincinnati USA Regional Tourism Network. Book your stay at CincinnatiUSA.com. And by Skyline Chili. Feeling good? It's Skyline time. Out front of Great American Ballpark and now inside as a big crowd gathers for the middle game of this 3-game series, Seattle and Cincinnati. And speaking of Seattle, let's take a look at their starting lineup as put forth by their 3rd-year manager, Eric Wedge. Brad Miller in the leadoff spot as he was a night ago. Endy Chavez gets to start here this afternoon. Then Kyle Seager, Kendrys Morales, Michael Saunders, and Mike Zunino in the middle. In the bottom 3, 7 hitters, Dustin Ackley. Then Brendan Ryan, the former Cardinals at shortstop, batting 8th. And Jeremy Bonderman is on the mound. For the Reds on the mound is Matt Latos, looking for victory number 8.
Well, he makes start number 18, Latos does. He's got a very good record. He would really be a cinch to be an all-star had the Reds not blown 5 of his games in which he left leading. but did not end up getting the win. You see the good earned run average. He's striking out a lot of batters this year. And simply the combination of no run support and some bad relief pitching behind him is the only thing costing Matt Latos being one of the biggest winners in this league. It has turned out to be a very good trade looking back on it with the San Diego Padres when you look at Matt Latos and what he's done, stepping in to be really one of the big workhorses in this rotation.
Both these teams play very good defense, and speaking of that, let's take a look at the Reds defensively behind Latos, brought to you by your Ford dealers. Robinson gets the start in left field. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Chu is in center. Bruce is in right. The infield is Hanahan at third. Is Turris at short. Phillips at second. Votto at first. A battery of Latos and Hannigan, and we'll talk about that also. Hannigan behind the plate normally, and not that he hasn't caught him before this year, because he has. He's made 5 starts with him on the mound this year, speaking of Matt Latos. But Hannigan behind the plate in this game due to some back spasms suffered this morning by Devin Mesoraco when he came to the ballpark, and so he's scratched and Hannigan put in there. And we also mentioned Derek Robinson, who normally would not start against the right-hander. You'd usually see Xavier Paul out there, but Paul, you saw, he hurt his elbow/shoulder jumping into the wall trying to catch a foul ball down the left field line last night, so he's out of there today. Derek Robinson gets the start out in left field, so we're ready to go. Latos to Miller, and a foul, and we are underway. Game time temperature here at Great American Ballpark, 75 degrees. Under overcast skies, threat of rain a little bit later on, but so far today, so good. A non-batting gloved Brad Miller hitting .250 with a run batted in. Started the game last night with a triple. In fact, he's the first Seattle player to have 2 triples in a game since Carlos Guillen did it against the White Sox back in May of 2003. He had a triple in the first inning and scored on the Nick Franklin home run, and had a 1-out triple in the 5th inning. Both those coming against Mike Leake. Votto to his right. Latos covers. That's a much better start to the game. A 3-1 put out here today. Talked about Joey Votto. 86 games into the year last year is when he went on the disabled list. His average was pretty good. Boy, he missed almost 2 months of the season, which the team did very well in the time that he was out. But he has been rock solid in the Reds lineup here in 2013. Here's Endy Chavez playing right field in this game. Michael Saunders, who was in right last night, has moved to left. Raul Ibanez, who is hitless in 11 career at-bats against Latos, not in the lineup here today. Chavez, the veteran at 35 years old, gets the start after appearing last night as a pinch hitter in the 7th inning and bouncing into what was one of the season-high 3 double plays that the Reds turned in the game last night. Jack Hanahan playing down at third. He's even with the grass. Dusty Baker was asked about the change in the left side of the lineup here this afternoon with Hanahan at third and his Turris at short. Was it because he wanted to give Frazier and Cozart the day off? He said, no, it's more about getting these guys some playing time. Chavez goes the other way and gets himself a base hit in the left.
Pretty fancy bit of hitting right there by Endy Chavez. He gets a fastball and kind of puts a little slashing stroke on it right here, and he takes it right over the head of the third baseman Hanahan.
Jack reached up for it, couldn't quite come down with it, and so the Mariners had themselves a first inning base runner.
You know, one thing to look at with Matt Latos early in the ball game, he's been trying to push his changeup a little more this year than in any other year, and he's doing that by throwing a few less sliders. So against left-handers, that changeup is going to be a big pitch to keep the hitters off his fastball.
So here's Kyle Seager, their third baseman. Latos has given up 8 stolen bases this year against a Seattle team that is near the bottom of the American League in steals at 30. talked about Hannigan catching Latos earlier this year. He in fact caught the first 5 games, or the first 4 games of the year thrown by Latos were caught by Hannigan, and those were 2 wins, 2 losses. And in one of those losses, a blown save. All quality starts for Latos. You may remember he started the year with 6 straight quality starts. Seager at 282 with a dozen home runs. He's driven in 38. Scored a run last night, was 1 for 2, so he brings a 5-game hitting streak into this one. He was on base 3 times. He had a hit, walked, and later scored, and then was hit by a pitch. The first of 2 straight hit batsmen in the 6th inning last night by Curtis Parch.
Yeah, that's a little better right there. Looked like Matt on the first couple of pitches, a little bit jumpy. He got to the point where he was trying to throw, maybe overthrow that fastball, jump at the hitter a little bit, front shoulder flying open. That time he makes a good adjustment, and he pounds his bottom of the strike zone.
Latos 25, won't turn 26 until the off season. Already in his 5th year in the major leagues.
It's really amazing for Matt Latos, and you can really ditto this for guys like Mike Leake, Homer Bailey, Johnny Cueto, the number of starts they've had in the major leagues at their young age. As you said, he won't turn 26 until later in the year. 123 starts under his major league belt as of today.
Look at that incredible winning percentage with the Reds. Basically 78% winning percentage in decisions that he has had with Cincinnati. He's making his 51st start as a Red here today. And of those 50 games, the Reds have won 34 and lost only 16. Hammered to right field by Seager. Did he get enough of that? It looked like it hit off the top of the wall, and it did, according to the first base umpire, Mike Estabrook. That's going to be a 2-run homer for Kyle Seager, and the Mariners, as they did last night, get a 2-run shot in the first inning here today and jump out in front 2-0.
Well, line drive the whole way, goes to a 3-1 count and gets a fastball pretty much right down Broadway. And Seager is a very solidly built young man. He hits a line shot that once it goes over that yellow line, folks, that's a homer.
13th of the year by Seager. You could see that ball just hit over the top of the yellow line right out there by the Mariners bullpen. Seager is second on the team in home runs with number 13. The Reds will need to play from behind again here today.
Well, the Mariners did the same thing last night against Mike Leake. A leadoff triple on an 0-2 pitch. Then Nick Franklin comes up and hits the first pitch he sees for a home run. Seager plates 2 with that line drive shot to right. Who are these upstarts?
This is a team that comes in at 10 under, 38 and 48.
Yeah, they're 12.5 games out of first place. I mean, you really would figure that when it comes down to trading deadline, the Reds are playing a team that will most likely be a seller. They've got some players on this ball club that they're likely to move. The guy that just struck out being one of them. He gets Morales on a slider right there. Maybe that was a changeup. I think it was a slider, and his just breaks straight down.
Kyle Seager. Big home run for him, his 13th. You can see there 24 home runs since June 20th. Most in the big leagues over that time span.
You know, sometimes an early home run like that can be a wake-up call to a pitcher like Matt Latos. You know, you're thinking you're playing against the Mariners. It's a home game. You're looking pretty good. The Reds are always good after they lose a game, so on and so forth. But, you know, when you're down 2-0 in the first inning, it can jolt you right back into the frame of mind where you need to be. And all of a sudden he's throwing with a little more authority.
1-1 now to Michael Saunders.
I mean, he did that same thing when the Reds played against the Pittsburgh Pirates. And the Reds had a little bit of a beanball war, and Chu got hit in the bottom of the first inning and all of a sudden Latos was simply unhittable from then on.
Well, let's hope that same scenario unfolds here this afternoon, although he's always known to show his emotion, wear his emotion on his sleeve, so to speak, and you could see him get a little upset with that pitch there. And now he's behind 2-1.
Well, as long as he gets upset with himself and not the umpire or the catcher or his fielders, it's all good. Everybody uses a little different form of motivation.
Two and two. Saunders a home run last night, his 5th of the year. It came in the 2nd inning. Made it 3-0 M's at the time. Looking back at the log of Kyle Seager, he had 20 home runs and had 86 RBIs a year ago. Now he has 13 and 40, so he's on basically the same pace as he was last year so far this year. Young man, only 25, out of University of North Carolina, from Charlotte, went to school at Chapel Hill. He's given the Mariners an early 2-0 lead. Got him. Couple of strikeouts in the inning for Latos, but the big blow, 2-run homer by Kyle Seager, ends up 2-0. Nothing lead in this game as the Reds come calling here in the bottom of the first. Their lineup card is as follows: Chu, Robinson, and Votto at the top. Phillips, Bruce, Hanahan in the middle. Bottom three include Cesar Izturis, Ryan Hanigan, and Matt Latos against his 30-year-old right-hander Jeremy Bonderman.
Well, it's hard to believe that Jeremy Bonderman is already 30 years old. It seems like just a couple of years ago he broke into the major leagues as a 20-year-old with the Detroit Tigers. 6 games under his belt. He's about 15 months removed from having Tommy John surgery. That elbow surgery was really the second type of surgery that he had. He's also had shoulder surgery a few years ago to relieve a blood clot. Back when he was winning 14 games with the Detroit Tigers, his average fastball was over 93. Now he struggles to get to 91. And that's really the story right now with Jeremy Bonderman.
Yeah, he was a big part of that Detroit Tiger team back in 2006. Led them to the World Series against the Cardinals when he won, as Chris mentioned, those 14 games. He's been out of baseball the last 2 years. Signed as a free agent with Seattle this offseason, and had it out in his contract if he wasn't up into the big leagues by June the 1st, he could elect free agency. Seattle called him up after he made 11 starts at AAA Tacoma, going 2-4 with a 4.52 ERA down there. So far in 6 starts here, 1-2 with a 4.05 earned run average. He gets Chu to get it started. Chu at 270, a dozen home runs. That's tops amongst major league leadoff men. 28 RBIs. Hit last night, 1 for 4. Of all the Reds players, Chu by far has faced Bonderman more than anyone else. He's 4 for 13 against the right-hander with 3 doubles and a home run. Pretty good slugging percentage. In the air, shallow center. Drifting all the way out there, the second baseman Miller, and Brad Miller makes the catch. Chu is retired to start the Reds' first inning. We talked about how good both these teams are defensively. Here's how the Mariners line up. Brought to you by your Ford dealers. Saunders in left today. Ackley in center. Chavez gets the start in right. Left side is Seager and Ryan. Right side is Miller and Morales. Bonderman caught today by Mike Zunino, who made the start also last night. So here's Derek Robinson. Overall at 259 with 7 RBIs. His better side certainly is his right side. And he fouls this one away. He's hitting only .212 batting left-handed, but only 4 for his last 31 as a left-handed hitter. That's almost a month now, compiling those numbers. A 129 average. Shoots one the other way, sinking fast, but getting there is Michael Saunders to make the catch. Robinson is out.
Now you keep hitting them like that, they'll fall in there eventually. It's a pretty good swing by Derek Robinson. He doesn't really try to do too much with it, just goes with it. He just got under it just a hair to keep that ball up in the air to allow the left fielder to get to it. That's really what you expect out of Derek batting left-handed, slashing at the left field.
Here's Votto with the bases empty. Reds went down in order in the first inning last night against their former teammate Aaron Harang, and now Votto tries to get on here in the bottom of the first today. Starts today 3rd in the league at .325. Home run last night is 15th. He now sits at 40 runs batted in. Home run last night means he's hitting 7 in a row. He's reached base in 20 in a row, and he still leads the National League amongst first basemen for all-star voting. The voting is finished. It's been done now for a couple of days, and we will find out later on tonight who the all-stars are. Here's that home run last night. I mean, a bomb to center.
Now, Eric Wedge was talking about that home run that Joey Votto hit before the game today in his office, saying that was a sign of one heck of a hitter right there. There aren't too many guys in the major leagues that can go down and get that pitch and hit it as far as Joey Votto did.
They measured that at 443 feet last night. Votto gets on here via the walk, his major league leading 61st. And remember, it landed in the camera area atop the hitter's backdrop out there, just to the left of the 404 mark. Right into that camera well out there. Closing in now on 150 career home runs. Last night was his 148th. So here's Phillips, an opportunity to keep the bottom of the first going. Brandon seeing Bonderman for the first time. Comes in at 265 with a dozen home runs. His 63 RBIs, good for 3rd in the league, behind Paul Goldschmidt of the Arizona Diamondbacks. 2nd in the league right now, Alan Craig of the Cardinals. Cardinals, by the one, they won their game last night at home against Miami. Smashed down the line at 3rd. Nice play by Seager, who goes the short way to 2nd. They get the force out on Votto, putting an end to the Reds' first inning. All right, now on FoxSportsOhio.com, the Columbus Blue Jackets brass talk about Nathan Horton's signing. Urban Meyer and family respond to criticisms of the Ohio State head coach, and get your questions ready for our Hall of Famer, Hal McCoy. Get complete coverage of all of today's action involving Ohio sports, which is always brought to you by 1-800-SAFE-AUTO. Drive safe, spend less. There are some umbrellas up around the ballpark. In fact, crew chief Jerry Lane was out on the mound between innings talking with Matt Latos. Doug Gallant, the head groundskeeper of the Reds, was out there talking with the umpires as well. It is raining lightly here at the ballpark. The weight is coming down right now. You could play through this.
Oh, yeah.
The entire afternoon, I guess, right? 2-0 M's. We go to the top of the second. Their young catcher, Mike Zunino, leads things off. Hitless in the game last night, 0 for 3. Playing in just his 17th big league game since he was called up from AAA Tacoma on the 11th of June. Batting .214 with a home run. And a young catcher behind the plate, Jesus Montero, on opening day. He was sent down in the middle of May to AAA when Zunino basically was called up. A little bit earlier than that. Young man they acquired from the Yankees last year. He was just not hitting for this team, so they sent him out, and through the process of a veteran, Kelly Shopik, another young man who is on the DL now, Jesus Sucre, whom we saw during the spring, Henry Blanco, a veteran who's here now as a backup. Mike Zunino, drafted just last year, gets his chance in the big leagues in his first full season as a professional.
Well, there are 6 players that were drafted last year that are now in the major leagues, but Mike Zunino is the only who is a position player. All the other ones are pitchers. So for him to be called up, you know, he went to college, went to the University of Florida and all, but for him to be called up as a position player and a catcher, that is really something special when you've got a player ready at age 22 to catch in the major leagues.
I read right, he was a Golden Spikes winner, is that right? That is the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy in baseball.
And of course, he's got pretty good bloodlines. His father, Greg, is a scout, longtime scout, and he is currently now scouting with the Reds in Florida. I think he's ahead of the state of Florida for amateur baseball scouting.
Zunino foul tipped that ball into the glove of Hannigan, and he is a strikeout victim to start the second.
Well, after the home run against Matt Latos, he is, don't look now, but struck out 3 in a row. So maybe that was a little bit of a wake-up call.
So here is Dustin Ackley. Center fielder, hitting just .194 with a homer and 10 runs batted in. Ackley was their opening day second baseman. Wasn't doing very well. They sent him down to the minor leagues. Transferred him from the infield to an outfielder. He's come back up here now and is playing basically on an everyday basis out in center, in part due to the injury to Franklin Gutierrez, who's been on the DL since near the end of June with a right hamstring strain. Ackley in the game last night was hitless in 2 with a walk. Seattle did not hit very well a year ago. And they really not hit that well this year, but you wouldn't know it by this series. That one yanked foul down the line. Seattle one season ago had the worst batting average and the worst on base percentage in Major League Baseball. They hit just .234 a year ago and were the only team in the big leagues last year who finished the season with an on base percentage under .300 at .296. This year they came into this series second worst in the American League in hitting at .240, fourth worst in on base at .304. They pounded out 2 home runs last night, a home run here today, and they lead 2-0 after winning last night 4-2. Home runs have been their thing. 102 of them now, 4th best in the American League, but that average way down there. Runs scored, second to the last in the league. Borderline pitch, and Ackley is rung up. How about 4 straight strikeouts now by Latos?
You look like you took that off right there, and that's a changeup, and that's the pitch that we talked about early on for Matt Latos against left-handers. As long as that is under control, and he's made a real good effort this year trying to throw that more often, and that's been a big pitch for him. He's already got 2+ pitches, fastball, slider. You add that to the mix, and you've got the full package.
The 2 out, nobody on. The batter is the former Cardinal Brendan Ryan. Right-handed hitter. That's strike 1. Brad Miller started at shortstop last night. He's playing second base today. Last night they had Nick Franklin in there at second. Today Ryan, who was their opening day shortstop, gets the nod, but this is a young man whose numbers have gone steadily down since he was acquired by Seattle from the Cardinals 3 years ago. He had 248 his first year here in 2011. 194 last year. Starts this game at 196. That's Alan Porter calling the balls and strikes here today. There are those numbers for Brendan Ryan. He was acquired by Seattle in the trade following the 2010 season from St. Louis. He's rung up. So striking out the side in the second is Latos, who has fanned 5 Mariners in a row. We're in the middle of the second here at Great American Ballpark. In today's game, our Miller Time moment brought to you by Miller Lite. Reds fans, remember now, if a Reds homer hits this Toyota sign during today's game, that's out in right center field. Steve Myers from Cincinnati, current proud owner of a 2011 Prius, will win this beautiful new Tundra that's been on display all year here at Great American Ballpark. Register for your chance to win in an upcoming game by simply visiting your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. Out at the ballpark, you're looking for the big truck. It's right above the Reds bullpen out in left center. Here's today's giveaway, the Jay Bruce t-shirt.
Should have been a Jay Bruce umbrella.
They can use that, I guess, sort of as an umbrella today if they need it. Speaking of, Jay leads things off in the bottom of the second. Starts the game at 272 with 18 home runs, 56 runs batted in. Hitless in the game last night, 0 for 4. In fact, 0 for his last 13. He went on that home run tear where he hit 8 in a stretch of 9 games over the course of the Reds road trip. Now he's gone 10 straight without a home run and only 2 RBIs. Trying to get it started today against Bonderman. There's the Seattle team that plays that shift. 3 infielders on the right side. Most exaggerated team we see play it is Pittsburgh, I guess.
You know, if you're over the way that Jay Bruce is, and they're giving you that left side of the infield that we just showed you. I mean, isn't a hit to lead the inning off a hit?
Indeed. And it's like we haven't seen Jay go the other way this year. He's done it more this year than he has any other year.
That's true.
There, you see that the shirt could be used as an umbrella.
I mean, I was really suggesting a possible bunt.
Oh, were you?
I mean, you're in a 2-0 ball game. You're leading the inning off, and it's not like a home run is going to cure all the problems right now. What you need is some runners on base and kind of get the offense flowing a little bit. Of course, we've been through that same debate where, you know, when they put a shift on for Adam Dunn, when they put a shift on for Ken Griffey Jr. But, you know, it's a little early yet to put Jay Bruce in the category of Ken Griffey Jr.
His 2 main teams going at it right here today. The Seattle Mariners, the team that drafted him back in 1988. And the Cincinnati Reds, where he grew up in this town and been a long time in his career. Talking about Ken Griffey Jr. In fact, the Mariners are going to induct Jr. into the Mariners Hall of Fame in August.
They should have done that after his first 5 years as a Mariner.
And he spent 13 of his 22 years in the big leagues out there with Seattle. Started out there and pretty much ended. He did end out there. He had that stint with the White Sox in there also. I said 88 he was drafted. It was 87 he was drafted by Seattle. 600 plus home runs. American League MVP in the late 90s. They'll retire him into the Mariners Hall of Fame later this summer.
Well, that's one way to beat the shift.
Draw the walk. Second issued by Bonderman, who's walked a dozen. 33 1/3 innings coming into this game. Mentioned that Bonderman won those 14 games back in 2006 with Detroit, helping them get to the World Series against the Cardinals. He had a stretch of 4 straight years, 04 through 07, where he won in double figures each of those years. 14 being a career best for him. In the dirt, Bruce takes off. Good awareness by Jay on the bases. That ball did not get that far away from Zunino. The heads up base running by Bruce has him at second.
Well, it looked like Zunino trying to go down and just field this with his glove around to get his body in front of it. A little backhanded action right there, and it squirted off his glove. He goes one way, the ball goes the other, and Jay Bruce prances on the second.
So now a hit could get the Reds on the board.
Or a ground ball to the right side to get him over.
And get that ground ball to the right side there, handled by Morales. Hanahan is gone 3 unassisted. But Bruce now perched 90 feet away with 1 out. Hanahan, who had a pinch hit single in the game last night, coming off the bench, gets the start here today, his first since a week ago today down in Texas. Now the batter will be his Turris.
I imagine the Mariners are going to play their infield in, and here comes the second baseman and shortstop right now. You wonder maybe this at bat if Dusty Baker may just try a suicide squeeze.
Reds have pulled it off a couple of times this year. There's a little flare into right. That's going to fall, and the Reds are going to get on the board. Maybe. Bruce had to wait, and the ball goes in and out of the glove of Zunino. They had a great chance to get Bruce at home plate. Down to second as the ball bounced away is his tourist. All ends well, but that had an ugly feel to it when that throw came in from Chavez and right.
Well, all Mike Zunino's got to do right here is get the baseball first and then apply the tag. He was just a little bit too quick with the glove action. That's why the ball bounces away from him. This throw is right on the money.
Yeah, he catches that ball. Jay is going to be out.
I think the other part of that is that infield is wet and slick, and that ball probably took off on him in a funny angle off the bounce, something that maybe he wasn't anticipating. But either way, the Reds get that run back, and they've half the lead.
The tying run is down at second base. That'll be ruled a single, and a run batted in for Izturis, only his 4th RBI of the year. He goes to second on the throw. No error given to Zunino, the catcher, or the right fielder Chavez. Easier to read, I guess, from up here. It looked all the way like that ball was going to drop for a hit.
It really did, but from ground level, you're not really sure. Endy Chavez came in with his glove up and gave the decoy to Jay Bruce, thinking, hey, I think I got a chance to catch that. So Bruce didn't want to get caught up in case he did and catch up in a double play.
Well, as we said, all's well that ends well on that play. 2-1 now. Reds down by a run with the tying run at second base.
This is our perspective right here. You can see right away that ball was never going to get out deep enough to get to Endy Chavez. Comes up with a good throw, though. I think the ball just kind of skidded on the wet turf.
No error, as I said, given on the play. I don't know. I think I might be inclined to give an error on that.
Well, if Izturis was running hard all the way from home to second base, I think that the official score will give the guy the benefit of the doubt and give him that he just went the second on the throw to home.
Joel Luckup, our statistician right here in the booth with us, said he was watching Izturis and that Cesar had gone all the way when that throw was unleashed in right by Chavez. So Ron Roth, the official score, a couple of booths over, one booth over, says no error. Now Hannigan trying to get him in. And he is a strikeout victim, the first of the game for Bonderman.
You know, Bonderman is pitching a lot like Aaron Harang did last night. Not an overpowering fastball, anywhere from 89 to 90 miles an hour. This is a slider right there he stays on top of and drives it straight down. But Brian Hannigan maybe a little bit too anxious right there. Chased 2 bad pitches in that at bat that really put him behind on the count.
Now it's up to Latos, big 6'6" right-hander who has 5 hits and a couple of RBIs this year. Reds down 2-1. We're in the bottom of the second. We had some light rain that started in the really in the bottom of the first inning. Right now it seems to have subsided. Are some umbrellas up down below, some ponchos. Overcast day here in Cincinnati. But we play at Great American Ballpark.
So what do you do if you're sitting in the stands, Jim Kelch, and it starts to rain like this, then it stops, and you're in a poncho? Are you the kind of guy to take the poncho off, fold it up, put it somewhere, and then wait again for it to rain, or you just leave it on?
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm the kind of guy, I would not bring a poncho.
You wouldn't?
I would not bring a poncho. Latos strikes out. The inning is over. Reds get a run. 2-2, trail 2-1. health. Serious lawyers for serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Look at these numbers now for these two clubs. For Seattle, 49.4% of their runs scored this year via the home run. That's best in the big leagues, and that included last night, but not today, where they've had a 2-run homer already from Kyle Seager to improve that 49.4%. On the other side, the Reds, 179 average with 2 outs and runners in scoring position. Last in the big leagues, 1 for 5 last night and already 0 for 1 today. That bottom number is certainly more concerning for the Reds. It doesn't really matter, I guess, how you score your runs as long as you score them. But from a Reds standpoint, boy, you really need to get the clutch hit, something that has not been happening for them. Today's Elk and Elk storyline. Here's Jeremy Bonderman to lead off inning number 3. Bonderman career-wise is a .036 hitter. He has 1 hit, 28 big league at-bats. His first at-bat of this year. First at-bat since 2010. His lone hit came back in 2007 as a Tiger.
He's probably just trying not to strike out right now. He would be the 6th consecutive strikeout for Matt Latos if he goes down swinging right here.
And Latos struck out Morales and Saunders looking, or rather swinging to end the first. Zunino swinging to start the second, and Ackley and Ryan looking to end the second. Now he gets Bonderman looking, swinging here, so that's 6 straight strikeouts for Latos.
And that takes us to our whip, brought to you by Head and Shoulders, now with a hint of Old Spice. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6 in a row for Matt Latos after giving up that 2-run home run to Kyle Seager in the first inning. You know, interesting, because we went back and looked at that game that he pitched on June the 16th against Pittsburgh. And after, in the first inning, when the Pirates got 2 runs off of him in the top of the first, Chu got hit with the to start the bottom of the first off, and then Latos went out and struck out 7 of the next 9 batters. And very similar to that now, Latos has struck out 6 in a row. So maybe he needs a 2-run home run every first inning. Too bad you can't give up those in the bullpen.
That'd be ideal. They turn the batting order over now, and it's Brad Miller. Bounced out to the right side to get this afternoon's game started. Led off the game last night with a triple. He has been at AA Jackson, AAA Tacoma, and the big leagues this year. Brad Miller. One of 2 rookies in their lineup today, and was one of 3, including Nick Franklin, that was in their lineup last night.
And if you're a young player in the minor leagues with some promise, Seattle is the organization you want to be in right now.
Latos has a pair of games this year in which he's hit double figures in strikeouts. 10 against Miami back on the 19th of April. And then 13 against the Diamondbacks on the 23rd of June out there.
Looks to me like Brad Miller's a lot better low ball hitter than he is a high ball hitter. That's what he hit for a triple last night. That's also what he hit on the ground ball on an 0-2 pitch in the first inning. If you go up the ladder on him, I doubt that he's going to be able to get on top of it.
Stays alive on that one. He's still at 2-2.
You know, sometimes you can scout just by how a guy holds the bat. And if he holds the bat straight up and down the way that Brad Miller does, it's real easy just to drop that bat head on the low pitch. It's awfully tough to get that bat from this position here to level to be able to hit a high fastball.
Kind of buckled him on that pitch a little bit. Boy, in and out of the glove of Hannigan, so just staying alive is Brad Miller. I take that back. It went right off the mask. Ninth pitch of the AB now. Late toast to Miller. That is ball 4. The first walk given up by Matt Latos here today. So 1 on 1 out. Batter will be Andy Chavez. This is before the game now. You didn't see this in our broadcast coverage, but American flag being used today by the Harrison Fire Department for our national anthem prior to the game is going to be sent on to New York following the game today so that it can be used as part of the 2013 Major League Baseball All-Star Game pregame ceremony, which will honor one military hero representing each of the 30 Major League teams. Smashed by Phillips and into center. That'll get the runner over to third. Miller. Chavez with his second hit of this game, and it's first and third and 1 out.
Yeah, looking a lot like the pitch he hit for a base hit his first time, except it was on the inner part of the plate. Up slightly above the belt, pretty much an inner third, and any way you cut it, that's good hitting. And a good hitting spot to hit.
So first and third, 1 out already, 2-1 Seattle. Batter Kyle Seager. To pass along just a little bit more information about that flag that we showed you. Mentioned that it'll be part of a pregame ceremonies for the All-Star game coming up in New York. Each of the teams sending a flag to New York City for that ceremony. Robinson will get under this ball, hit by Seager, caught at the edge of the track. Throw correctly goes into second, keeping that runner Chavez at first. Miller will score. Sac fly Seager. He's had a 3 RBI game already. The Mariners lead it 3-1. That flag is going to be framed and presented to the Reds military representative as part of that People's Tribute for Heroes ceremony. It will be nationally televised on Fox on July the 16th. Batter now is Kendrys Morales. Well, this Seattle team has played in this series nothing like a club that came in 11 games under 500. They give up a run to the Reds at the bottom of the second. They get one back here in the top of the third. Mentioned last night, Eric Wedge comes from Reds country, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Played collegiately at Wichita State in his third year here. He managed for 7 years in the Buckeye State up at Cleveland. Took one team to the American League Championship Series. This should end the inning. Phillips to Izturis. Force out on Chavez. Top of the third comes to a close. Up on Friday, July the 19th through Sunday the 21st, when the Reds take on what is right now the first place Pittsburgh Pirates. That's the first series back after the All-Star break. Friday the 19th. Stick around for a post-game fireworks show presented by Cooper Tires. For tickets to see the Reds and the Pirates July the 19th through the 21st, you can call 513-381-REDS. You can visit select Kroger locations, or you can log on to Reds.com/tickets. Reds have the upcoming road trip at Milwaukee, at Atlanta, then 4 days for the All-Star break, and then back at it on the 19th against the Pittsburgh Pirates at Friday night, Saturday mid-afternoon, Sunday afternoon, 3-game series right before they head west. Sawed him off a bit on the inside. There's Chu, and Bonderman will flip on to first, and a 1-3 put out. 2 pitches, 1 out. Tonight's Ohio Lottery Powerball jackpot sitting at $70 million. Drawing is tonight at 11. $70 million right now. The Ohio Lottery Powerball jackpot. The Cardinals won last night. They've turned around and already won today at home against Miami 5-4. Marlins had the lead in that game. 4-2 going into the bottom of the 7th. Matt Adams at a 2-run homer to tie it. And then in the bottom of the 9th inning, Shane Robinson, a single into right field, scored John Jay. The Cardinals win 5-4 over the Marlins to take the first 2 games of that series. Reds began the day, thanks to the Pirate win yesterday, 4.5 out of first, 2.5 out of second in the Cardinals. Cardinals have already won. Pittsburgh and the Cubs are playing, and they are scoreless in the 3rd in Chicago. Furthest back the Reds have been was last Sunday when they lost that game down in Texas. They came home to begin the Giants series 5.5 out. Pirates win today and the Reds fall. That's where they would be going into the wrap up of this series tomorrow.
Dusty Baker has talked about making a run right before the All-Star break, and he's really he compares it to a basketball team making a run before the end of the first half. Where you can get some points late in the first half, and then you start the second half a little bit of run, then you put the game out of reach. And of course, he's talking about making a run to try to get back closer to first place, or at least keep pace with the Pirates. I mean, the Pirates have been winning a lot of ball games, and St. Louis has stayed right with them. This has proved to be a very tough division this year, and the Reds, of course, would like to take advantage of these 2 games at home here because they play so well at Great American Ballpark.
Robinson, who hit it hard the other way his first time, pulls one into right field this time. Gets himself a 1-out base hit number 2 for Cincinnati.
He just puts it on the ground. I mean, he likes to slap the ball the other way, but he gets over the top of that one, finds a hole on the right side of the infield. Now the Reds have some speed on the base paths.
Here's Votto now representing the tying run. Jeremy Bonderman, the 6-foot, 220-pound right-hander, facing Votto. He walked Joey his first time. Joey leads all of the big leagues with 61 walks. Bonderman is from Kennewick, Washington, which is in southeast section of the state of Washington. Went to high school in Pasco, Washington, which is the county seat up there. Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland make up what they call the Tri-Cities area in southeast state of Washington.
Well, Bonderman, as we said earlier, of course, was drafted originally by the Oakland A's, traded to Detroit, made his major league debut at age 20 years old. But really the story that is interesting about Jeremy Bonderman happened, as it relates to the book Moneyball, the famous book by Michael Lewis that was then made into a movie. where Brad Pitt starred as Billy Beane, the general manager of the Oakland A's. And in the book, if you remember, those of you who may have read the book, you remember that there was a scene where Grady Fuson, who was the farm director and the scouting director at that time for the Oakland A's, they ended up drafting Jeremy Bonderman. And Billy Beane had made it clear to everybody that he did not want to draft very high in the rounds high school pitchers, because they really weren't predictable enough to get to the major leagues. You don't know what a kid at age 17 years old is going to look like at age 23 when he's finally ready for the major leagues. So the percentage of success wasn't as good with high schoolers as it was with college players. So when he heard that the A's drafted Bonderman, the story goes in Moneyball that he picked a chair up and he threw it through the wall in anger. So that's the way it turned out. That yeah, so he got Bonderman in June of 2001, and they traded him to Detroit in July of 2002. So they eventually dumped Bonderman as quickly as they could, and he went on to Detroit to deliver 4 years in which he won double-digit wins. And then he was plagued by a lot of bad injuries.
Yeah, you talked about the Tommy John surgery last year, the shoulder surgery to relieve blood clotting in his right shoulder area the year before that, called the thoracic outlet compression syndrome surgery.
That's the surgery that, if it is severe enough that they actually remove a rib from the upper part, right underneath your armpit, essentially, so to relieve some pressure that it blocks the blood flow, essentially, on an artery that goes down into your arm. It's a very serious condition that needs to be taken care of right away, much more than just a baseball injury. It's a serious, life-threatening injury. So he missed 2008 with a blood clot and that surgery. Then he also missed a year coming back from Tommy John, and that's about 15 months ago that he had that.
And he had that out in his contract this year. If he wasn't in the big leagues by the 1st of June with Seattle, he could elect free agency. Mariners called him up. Phillips flies out, and so after Votto took a third strike, Phillips is gone, and the Reds leave Robinson on the bases. Stars align for the 2013 Major League Baseball All-Star Game as the best of the American League takes on the best of the National League. Don't miss all the action coming up Tuesday, July the 16th at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific on Fox. Major League All-Star Game from Citi Field. We will find out later today who will represent the Reds, who will represent the Mariners, who will represent all the teams around Major League Baseball. That news is scheduled to come out at around 6:30, and when it does, Jim Day will have that information for us and pass it along. Every team, of course, has to be represented. They have a couple of pitchers on this team, Felix Hernandez and Hisashi Iwakuma, who they feel could represent them pitching wise for the American League and the All-Star team. Saunders leads it off here in the 4th. And on the grass at third is Hanahan. Saunders a strikeout victim his first time. One of the 6 in a row Latos picked up from the first through the first out of the third. Saunders, Zunino, and Ackley. 5, 6, 7 in Eric Wedge's order of things here today. Zunino on deck. And a little light sprinkle earlier, but nothing now. We play here in the 4th. Seattle leading 3-1. They about hit the Reds 3-2. Mariners a winner here last night 4-2. And Latos making his 14th interleague start in his career. He's 6-3 with a 3.92 ERA in interleague play throughout his career. 4th time this year he's pitched in interleague play. He's worked against the Angels here, worked here against Cleveland, worked down in Texas, now works here against the Mariners. The Reds will have, as we mentioned last night, one more series of interleague baseball yet this year. That comes in the middle of September down in Houston. The old National League Astros now in their first year in the American League. Reds will play down there in the middle of September. Interleague play has never been very good to the Reds, and this year no exception. Strikeout number 7 recorded by Latos is Saunders here in the 4th.
Yeah, you look at where they're trying to pitch him down, 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 and away, and then he finally just blows one away in the upper part of the strike zone.
Yeah, they put the familiar K up out there in the second level of the bleachers.
I mean, this guy's a horse. I mean, he's striking out a batter an inning. He looks, he's got the demeanor on the mound that, see, we know him as the big teddy bear. Those that go in the clubhouse get to know Matt Latos, but to just look at him on the mound. And if you're from Seattle, you haven't seen very many Reds games, you don't know who Matt Latos is. And you see him all tatted up, 6 feet 6 inches, got a little kind of a funky looking mohawk haircut going on. I mean, you're not about to dig in, are you?
I wouldn't dig in against any of these guys.
Sometimes comes up there at 96.
Today's walked 1, struck out 7.
He's got good control, and that is so unusual for a pitcher that throughout his whole career has thrown as hard as Matt Latos has thrown.
Bruce there, and that ball sliced into right field, and Zunino is 0 for 2. Latos had a 1-2-3 second. Hopes to do it again here in the 4th. Take a look at our AT&T trivia question of the day. Which former Reds outfielder hit 4 home runs in a game as a Mariner? Which former Reds outfielder hit 4 home runs in a game as a Mariner? Now that has all the makings and trappings of a trick question.
Well, the first name that comes to mind, obviously, Ken Griffey Jr.
Right. That's what I'm talking
Or
about.
Ken Griffey Sr.
Yeah. All the makings of a trap question.
So you're saying that's not the answer?
No, I'm not saying that. It could be the answer.
Do you know the answer?
I think I do.
Whisper it to me.
What do you think?
I can't hear that well.
So you can't hear
That
and you
sounded
can't
awfully
speak.
quiet. I mean, did anybody out there? I mean, I said whisper. You didn't. I didn't hear anything.
Sinking into left center. That's going to be extra bases for Dustin Ackley. Ackley hitless last night. Called out on strikes his first time here today. Gets the 2-out double.
It's a pretty good pitcher's pitch right there. That ball down below the knees. Just goes to show you, it doesn't always guarantee you get a good result when you make a good pitch.
Now the 6th double of the year for Ackley has him in scoring position with 2 out, and now the Reds will elect to work around Brendan Ryan to get to Bonderman. He'll be up there with 2 on 2 out here in the 4th. Something you never see, or I would say rarely see, in an American League game. What you're seeing right here. The intentional walk will be given to Brendan Ryan. He joins Ackley on the bases. Bonderman will come up there, 2 on 2 out. M's already leading 3-1. Bonderman struck out his first time.
Wasn't it Brendan Ryan who was the shortstop for the Cardinals when at the start of the ball game he wasn't ready? He brought the wrong glove out to shortstop, and Chris Carpenter was pitching, and he got all aggravated because Ryan had to call timeout, go back in the clubhouse, delayed the start of the bottom of the first inning. And was that the same game in which the Reds brawled with Johnny Cueto?
That game
that was the same series, was it not?
I thought that game you're talking about was in St. Louis.
No,
that was
that
here.
game was here.
Okay. What do you think, Joel?
I don't know how you look that up, but it just seems to stick in my mind that it was one of the things that aggravated Chris Carpenter beyond belief.
I remember that.
That his shortstop would bring out the wrong glove. Maybe it was his practice glove or one he's trying to break in or whatever. And he kind of delayed the game, and he was embarrassed. But, of course, Carpenter let him have it.
Yeah, he got all worked up, didn't he?
Evidently not a Cardinal type of player. They moved him out of there pretty quick.
Down 2 strikes.
It was the night before the Reds ended up having that fight behind home plate in which Johnny Cueto was pinned against the screen and was kicking.
August of 2010.
So it was August 9th where Carpenter pitched, got aggravated at Ryan. The next night he was still aggravated, but that time at the Reds.
At the end of the 10th season, Ryan was no longer a Cardinal. Not that one had anything to do with the other. Leto's trying to dispose of Bonderman here. And he does. His 8th. 2 stranded by the Mariners. 3-1 Seattle in the middle of the 4th. brought to you by Toyota. See your Toyota dealer or visit buyatoyota.com. Toyota, let's go places. And by the JTM Food Group. Let's create great dishes together. Mariners in front 3-1. Earlier at the ballpark today, celebrity sighting down on the field. Yes, indeed. Alice Cooper in town. And he throws out a ceremonial first pitch to Matt Latos. Apropos that the musician that he is, Latos, catches the pitch by Alice Cooper. I said Latos of Bronson Arroyo, musician that he is, catches the pitch from Alice Cooper, who is in town to perform, I guess, tomorrow night at the new Horseshoe Casino here in
I didn't recognize him without the mascara.
Yeah, now he had a number 18 jersey on. Was it you asking me or somebody was asking me?
Yeah,
about
you
that?
know that was the big song that he came out with in 1971. Sung from the point of view of an 18-year-old who's stuck between a boy and a man, and he's 18. And also in 72, he came out with Schools Out for Summer. All-time favorite there.
Alice
that
Cooper.
18 song is included in the Rolling Stones top 500 of all time.
Bruce cracks this ball to right. Unfortunately, playable out there for Endy Chavez. And the first pitch here at the bottom of the fourth, after an 8-pitch AB his first time up, Bruce lines out for out number 1.
Well, the Reds have hit a few balls right on the button this afternoon with not a whole lot to show for them. This is one of them. Boy, Bruce has been good about getting his foot down, trying to keep his balance. That time hit it well, but no luck.
So here's Jack Hanahan against Jeremy Bonderman. Last time out for Bonderman, he allowed 6 runs, 6 hits, and 3 1/3 in a 7-6 loss to the White Sox. His only win came back on the 7th of June against the Yankees at home. He had a stretch of really 4 straight starts where he was very impressive. And that last time out, 6 runs. What do you think they were thinking when he had a 2-4 record with a 4.5 ERA at AAA, had that out in his contract? They elect to call him up. He makes his Seattle 2013 debut at Minnesota on the 2nd of June and gives up 7 runs, 9 hits in 4 2/3. That ball hit hard by Hanahan toward the Reds bullpen area, and it hits the base of the wall. Bounces away from Ackley. Hanahan into second with a 1-out double. Back-to-back hard-hit balls by the Reds. One ends up and out. That one a 2-base hit.
Now the former Seattle Mariner ends up burning his old team. He gets a whole bunch of this one. Does Jack Hanahan. Stays behind it nicely, drives it. The only question was whether it was going to hang up there long enough for Dustin Ackley, the center fielder, to run it down. Hanahan played 51 games or so for the Mariners back in 2009 after he was acquired right before the trading deadline in exchange for Justin Sousa.
First pitch swinging here is Turris. Reds taking a little different tack now in this inning against Bonderman, going after early pitches in the count. 2 out. The Reds have played Hanahan's former Oakland team this year, now playing his former Seattle team. They played his former Cleveland team. The only team they haven't played this year that he has been a part of in the big leagues is Detroit.
Now they're going to walk Ryan Hanigan just to make sure, kind of the same way that Dusty Baker walked the batter that was in front of the pitcher Bonderman. He walked Ryan in order to get the Bonderman, ended up getting the strikeout out of Bonderman, and they're going to try to do the same thing with Matt Latos. The difference, though, is that Latos swings a much better bat.
Latos will represent, when he comes up there, the go-ahead run in this 3-1 game in the bottom of the fourth. If you're wondering about Latos, He does have 3 career home runs. One last year as a member of the Reds. That came here against Wandy Rodriguez and the Pittsburgh Pirates late in the year. Here he steps in with 2 on, 2 out, bottom of the 4th. Struck out his first time. Hits this ball to the alley in right center. This could tie this game. Hanahan will score. Here comes a runner to third. Hannigan, he's being waved around. He will score, standing up on a 2-run double by Matt Latos, who now has 4 RBIs on the year. Chris said he could swing the bat pretty well. He did right there. 3-3 game.
Well, I've watched enough pitchers batting practice to tell you that you better not groove one to Matt Latos, because he's a big, strong kid and he can put the bat on the ball. And I just don't understand sometimes where you walk the number 8 hitter and now you have the pitcher up there, and the first thing you do is you pipe a fastball pretty much right down Broadway. It was down a little bit, but still caught a lot of the plate. I mean, pitchers can hit fastballs sometimes, but they can hardly ever hit breaking balls. So why wouldn't you go after a guy with a breaking ball? That's a mistake that Bonderman makes right there, and he finds himself now in a tie ball game.
And Latos was getting a real chuckle out of it out at second base after he hit it, shaking his head, laughing. Like, wow.
Well, those are RBI number 3 and 4 of the year. I think does that lead the pitching staff in that department?
Check that out, but you may be right. Knots this game at 3 and gives Chu a chance. And he's the only Reds pitcher that had more than 1 RBI, and he now has 4. Chu now with an opportunity to give the Reds their first lead of this series. Tied things at 3 here in the bottom of the 4th.
Well, that hit, you know, when you get a hit by a pitcher like that with 2 outs after an intentional walk, that's a real momentum changer in a ball game. It just changes the entire energy in the ballpark.
With 2 on and 2 out, the runners were moving on contact. Hanahan was going to score easily. Hannigan got over to third, and Chris Spire waved him around, and he scored standing up. The game is 3-3 in the bottom of the 4th. Off his leg. Chu in this game 0 for 2. He's popped up. He's tapped back to the mound. See his 2-out numbers this year with runners in scoring position. Very impressive. Showed you that stat earlier that the team 2-out runners in scoring position numbers not very good. In fact, the worst in the major leagues. Chu trying to deliver the big hit here. Put the Reds in front. Pirates scored a run in the top of the 4th, but now the Cubs have come back with 2 in the bottom half. Still batting, leading the Pirates 2-1. Chu into center. Latos on the run, being waved home by Chris Spire. Here comes the throw. Not in time. They throw it on the second. Ball skips away. Chu decides to stay put at second base. Chu comes up with a 2-out base hit. And the Reds, for the first time in this series, lead by the score of 4-3.
Well, how about the little 2-out hitting? We've bemoaned the fact that the Reds have been hitting, what, 179. The worst in the league with runners on base and in scoring position with 2 outs, but in this inning, Matt Latos comes through, Chu comes through, and what looked like was going to be an easy inning there for Jeremy Bonderman here in the 4th inning. The Reds have not only tied it up, they've gone ahead, and Eric Wedge has gone to the phone to get that bullpen working.
Well, Carl Willis goes to the mound, pitching coach of the Mariners, to talk things over out there with his young catcher Zunino and his veteran pitcher Bonderman.
I got to figure that Bonderman would just love to have that at-bat back against Matt Latos. I mean, to lay a little cream puff fastball in there on the first pitch.
Right-hander Blake Bevan is up and throwing now in the Seattle bullpen. Robinson already has 2 hard hit balls in this game. 1 drop for a hit. That was into right his last time. He could add to the Reds' lead with another base hit here. Well, interesting that both teams use the same philosophy in terms of pitching around the 8-hitter. It works for the Reds and Latos. Does not work at all for the Mariners and Bonderman.
Well, I think that being in a National League team, you have a little more respect for pitchers that hit than you do if you're an American League player. And of course, Bonderman spent almost his entire career with American League teams, so he doesn't bat as much as Matt Latos has. But the intentional walk overall was something foreign to the Mariners. They've only walked now with Latos 12 intentional walks all year. The Reds have used 39. So an intentional walk in the National League is really part of the strategy. In the American League, it's usually, you know, to set up a double play, to avoid a matchup you don't like, something like that. But in the National League, you're using it all the time to walk the number 8 hitter to get to the pitcher.
Strategy that if the league no longer used the DH, as some people are always talking about, you'd miss out on. Two and two now to Robinson. 2-run double by Latos. RBI single by Chu. 3-run inning. And a 4-3 Reds lead here in the bottom of the 4th. Chu gets number 29 in terms of RBI. Latos numbers 3 and 4. And he'll pitch with the lead when he goes back out there in the 5th for the first time today. Strike 3 call. Robinson didn't agree with Alan Porter, but strikeout number 4 for Bonderman. Big hit in this inning. Matt Latos. 2-run double into right center field. Scores Hanahan and Hannigan. Reds lead 4-3. At 30 minutes before every game here on Reds Live on Fox Sports Ohio. Reds Live pregame presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing. We'll have it again tomorrow for you before the 1:10 game. Jim Day, Jeff Pocora will come your way with Reds Live beginning at 12:30 for the wrap-up of this series. Earlier we talked about our AT&T trivia question. Let's go back to the answer. Which former Reds outfielder hit 4 home runs in a game as a Mariner? Trick question. I said Mike Cameron.
You did say Mike Cameron.
May 2, 2002, the former Red involved in the Ken Griffey Jr. deal. Not one, not two, three. Still not done. Four of them from Mike Cameron. Well, he was a big part of that Reds team in what was it, 2000, I guess, that had such a very good year. Or 1999. They had a very good year. Went into that one-game extra contest at the end of the year against the Mets.
Good player, classy guy, world-class outfielder.
See how that was a trick question. Everybody naturally would have thought Junior, but it ended up being Cameron.
I was actually thinking Vladimir Valentin.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, Vladdy. I don't know that he had 4 home runs in his career, did he? Much less one game.
Well, I didn't know that. I just knew he was always the favorite of John Brenneman.
He was, huh? I didn't know that either.
That's why he came to my mind immediately.
Well, new game as we play here into the 5th. Reds have now out-hit the M's 5-4, lead them 4-3. Trying to get even in this series. Trying to win for the 50th time this year. Trying to win for the 30th time at home. And maybe with a little help from the Cubbies. Get back within 3.5 of first place in the NL Central when the day of baseball is over. Latos gunning for his 8th win. Came in with a 3.03 ERA. What do you do after you take the lead? You don't want to walk the leadoff man, but that's what happens here in the 5th. I'm going to send out a special happy birthday greeting today. Number 85 goes out to Dick Shearer. Dick is from St. Mary's, Ohio, originally from Vandalia. His family reports he was quite the pitcher back in the day in St. Mary's, Ohio. Happy 85th. To Dick Shearer. Quite the pitcher back in the day. You remember reading about Dick Shearer, St. Mary's, Ohio?
No, but I can ask Joel. Joel will look it up.
The day, if he's 85, the day probably would have been 60 or so, 65 years or so ago. So that would have put him back in the 50s. Would have been the day. That would have been before your day, before my day.
That's why Joel's got to do the looking.
Well, happy birthday, Dick.
Why we call him Joel Lookup.
Joel Lookup. The Reds would love a double play ball here off the bat of Endy Chavez, who already has himself a pair of hits this afternoon. Ball bounces away, and that's going to get Miller down to second base. In the dirt, Hannigan did all he could. Bounced away to his right. A wild pitch on Latos.
Well, Hannigan was lucky to even get his body in front of that. That was one of those breaking balls that when it hits the dirt, it'll spin off in the opposite direction of the way the ball is breaking. First time in a while that he's caught Latos today.
And we mentioned it's the 6th time this year, but he has not caught him since back in late April. Now he falls behind 3-1.
I wonder if Chavez is really serious about laying a bunt down right there. Got Jack Hanahan, third baseman, just about even with the bag. He's had a hit to left, a hit to right, Chavez has, and maybe looking for an infield hit here to move that runner over.
Boy, this is atypical of Matt Latos. Back-to-back walks to start the 5th inning after his team had scored 3 times and taken the lead in the bottom of the 4th. So much so that Brian Price will emerge from the Reds dugout.
Well, it's a mental thing, obviously. I mean, it's not all of a sudden that Matt Latos, just because he ran the bases, that he lost it physically. You know, he's just gotten out of his mind right here for a little bit, and it happens to pitchers. You know, that the level of focus that it takes to pitch a major league game, you've got to be intense. It doesn't take much to get out of that little intensity. And, you know, if you waver a little bit, all of a sudden you give up a good hit because you lay a ball down the middle or you don't throw strikes where you want to. And this is the old checkup from the neck up.
In this inning, but he has yet to get an out.
The thing to watch with Matt Latos is after he gets above that number 90 in pitches, his batting average again simply skyrockets, you know, later in the ball game, and you hope that Latos can be a little more pitch conservative, because it's proven that when he gets over 90 pitches, that's when they start centering the ball on him a little bit.
Here's Kyle Seager. He's had a pretty good day so far. First pitch swinging into center. Chu tracks it down. Boy, that runner from first base, Chavez, he was intent on trying to move up, but Brad Miller thought better of it. He stayed put at second, and Chavez had to scamper on back to first base.
I think Miller read that as Miller, the runner at second base, read that as a possible base hit. So he went halfway thinking that Chu wasn't going to pick up that ball and be able to get it on the fly. So Chu ends up going back to get it. Didn't even get to the warning track. So Miller then thought he was going to go back and tag up. Meanwhile, MD Chavez is thinking, hey, I got to do whatever the runner in front of me does. And that fake out right there is what put Chavez almost halfway to second base, but nobody at the bag to hold him.
Now a double play ball could get the Reds through the inning. Again, they turned 3 of them last night. O'Reilly's hit into 1 of them, and he's hit into a team high 14 double plays this year. And again, keeping Miller close out at second.
You know, one of the worries about acquiring Matt Latos is the fact that he in San Diego is a fly ball pitcher. But this year he's rolled out more ground balls than ever before. And he's already rolled up 8 ground ball double plays. He's been pretty good about keeping that ball on the ground.
Manny Parr, who induced the 5-4-3 double play ball off the bat of Morales in the 8th inning last night, the 14th in which he has hit. That's second in the American League, only behind the former Cardinal Albert Pujols, who has hit into 17 double plays. Now Big Matt ahead 1-2. Lefty Michael Saunders on deck. 4-3 Reds in the 5th. Long way over to get that ball is Turris. Low throw. Got him at first base. Boy, that almost handcuffed Joey over there at first. No way that Cesar had any other play. They do get Morales 2 out.
It's a nice play by Cesar Turris. He goes a long way to get to that ball, and he's got to throw really without taking a step. That's why the ball didn't have much on it. And Joey Votto saw that short hop coming. Instead of trying to lean out and maybe catch it on the real short spot, he wanted to make sure that ball didn't get by him, so he fielded it, so it ended up really catching it in his gut.
Now Hannigan and Latos will talk over how they want to approach Michael Saunders with runners at second and third and 2 men out here in the 5th inning. Reds trying to protect this lead of 4-3. Saunders this year with runners in scoring position hitting .067, 2 out of 30. Scoring position 2 out, 0 for 13.
Best fastball of the day for Latos at 95. One thing you really notice about Matt Latos' numbers this year, the numbers within the numbers. With nobody on base, batting averages are higher than they are with runners in scoring position. This guy knows how to turn it up a notch. And just to back it up for you, with nobody on, the batting average against Latos is .279 average. With runners in scoring position and 2 outs, the batting average is .186. So it drops nearly 100 points.
How do you account for that?
You bow your neck, you throw your better pitches with runners on base.
Well, let's see what he does here. A ball and 2 strikes on Saunders. Second and third, 2 out.
I mean, he's clearly upped his fastball now. He's been working at 91, 92 all game long. All of a sudden, throughout this entire at bat, he's throwing 95. That's really how you account for it.
Zunino on deck. Saunders is fanned twice. Latos coming at him again. Got him for the 3rd time today. Nice job by Matt Latos. He gets Saunders with 2 on and 2 out, keeping the lead intact for the Reds. All right, well, we talked about it last night. We'll talk about it again tonight. You know, we're holding an open casting call for the next Fox Sports Ohio girl during the month of July. If you were born and raised in Ohio and want to be our connection to Ohio sports fans like Sarah and Christine? Simply go to girls.foxsportsohio.com to submit an application. The casting call for the next Fox Sports Ohio girl ends on July the 24th. Rumor has it that Jesse Jackson may be involved in that. He may be a judge. What a judge he would be. Joel Lookup might be involved. He's not at a numerous book signings that he goes to seemingly every day. To the right of Miller. And Votto is gone. He's over 2 plus a walk today. That's brightened up a little bit. The lights have also come on here at the ballpark as we play in the bottom of the 5th. That little sprinkle about in the 2nd inning, but really since then nothing. Those who watch the weather intently during Reds games seem to be pretty confident that we'll get through this one without any more precipitation. Phillips against Bonderman. In this game, he's hit into a force play and flied out. Only Chu and Hanahan in the lineup today had faced Bonderman before. And I should throw Phillips' name in there as well. He was 3 for 10 with a home run. Only really a third of the lineup had seen this right-hander in the past. Seager on one hop. Good adjustment on the receiving end by Morales. 2 out. Bonderman at 74 pitches in this game as he works to Bruce. And that 8-pitch plate appearance back in the 2nd inning when he walked. 1 pitch in the 4th and he lined out. That 8-pitch at bat back in the 2nd inning, the 21st 8-pitch or more at bat he's had this year, which is the most in the big leagues. He's been a patient hitter, what that is telling us. Gets ahead here 2-1. Bonderman is due up 4th in the 6th inning. There's no action right now in the Seattle bullpen. Up the middle, and it's good to see Jay Bruce snap an 0 for 14 drought with that base hit.
Well, it was a good patient at bat for Jay Bruce. You know, he hit a line drive right to the right fielder his last time up. So maybe it's a sign that he's beginning to see the ball a little bit better. Our Expo by Performance Honda.
Little 2-out base hit by Jay Bruce. Gives the Reds their 6th hit of the afternoon. Brings up Jack Hanahan. Double to center field his last time. Got that average now up over the 200 mark. Mentioned he appeared in the game last night as a pinch hitter. Had a hit. He had been 1 for his last 18. He gets the hit last night. He's come back with a double today. Reds, including today, have 9 games remaining until the All-Star break. Today and tomorrow here against the Mariners, and then that 7-game road trip upcoming. 3 at Milwaukee, 4 at Atlanta, and the 4-day All-Star break, and then the Pirates here for 3. Reds will be at 95 games played when they hit the All-Star break. That is the unofficial midway point of the season. Of course, with 162 games, the mathematical halfway point is 81. The Reds, after 81 games this year, are 46 and 35, 11 over. They double that and go to 22 over for the year. Would that be enough to get them into the postseason?
Well, you want to get into the postseason really as a division winner.
Right.
You don't want to be one of those teams that plays all year long, gets into the postseason, and it's a one-game play-in. And then, so your hopes lie on what happens over 9 innings. That's a tough way to go out.
Hey, talked a little bit about it. As the division champ last year, it was fun to watch the Cardinals and the Cardinals and the Braves playing that one gamer. It's like very interesting and to see how it goes. But if you're in that game, as you say, after playing 162 in 6 months, not so much fun.
You know, and then there's also that day off after the season. So if you have a game to make up, like a rainout, for instance, the Reds have a game to make up with the San Francisco Giants now.
Right.
So say that game is not able to be played anywhere along the line, and that means something to either team. Now that game's got to be played the day after the season. Potentially what could happen is that the Reds could qualify for the postseason, be in the one-game play-in, have to play that game against the Giants because it means something to either the Reds or the Giants. So now, and then if they win that play-in game, you go right into the playoffs with no days off. And that would be a tough thing to do. That's why every team's goal, obviously, is win their division.
Well, right now, the Reds are in a wild card playoff position along with St. Louis. Some 5 games ahead of their closest competitor, the Washington Nationals. But if the season were to end now, the National League wild card would be St. Louis hosting Cincinnati, with the Pirates as the division champ. Now movement down in the Seattle bullpen. They have a right-hander up. '58 Carter Katz. After 2 ground ball outs, single by Bruce, walk to Hanahan. Now is Turris. RBI single to right back in the second. And a fly ball out to center.
This will be his first at bat of the day where he's seen more than 1 pitch.
And that sinking ball into right field in front of Chavez back in the second, which kind of fooled Bruce. Ball skips like a rock on a lake up into the seats out there beyond the tarpaulin roll. But a close play at the plate, and the ball not skipped away from Zunino. Jay kind of decoyed into thinking that ball may have been caught out in right. He held up. In fact, he didn't take off. He was right on the base when the ball finally dropped, and Chavez darn near threw him out. Bonderman approaching 90 pitches. Bruce out at second. Hanahan at first. Carl Willis, the pitching coach, already been out to the mound twice in this game. Now it's 3-1.
Boy, it started as a nice easy inning for Bonderman too. A couple of easy ground balls from Votto and Phillips. You figure, hey, you're going to retire Votto and Phillips, and then you lose your concentration a little bit. Good at bat by Bruce. You walk Hanahan. Now you're in trouble. Tell you one thing, if they want to pitch his Turris away, Michael Saunders in left field is playing way too deep, and the center fielder might be also. I mean, for every ball that his Turris is going to hit over the outfielder's head, he's going to hit 8 in front of him.
Good point. Runners go, and a base hit. A base hit into right center field by Turris. Bruce will score. There goes Turris to second. Here comes Hanahan to the plate. He will score. How about Cesar Turris this afternoon? 3 RBIs, doubling his RBI total for the season. And the Reds have now taken a 6-3 lead.
Well, you know, Dusty Baker may have just had a premonition about giving Zach Cozart the day off, because if you look at the numbers, Cesar Izturis is much better against left-handed pitcher than he is a right-handed pitcher. But Bonderman's right-handed. Dusty decides to go with Izturis, and Cesar delivers. Hail to Caesar.
Well, that frog throat hasn't affected your mind.
Still thinking like a frog.
How about this inning? 2 out, nobody on. As you said, it looked like it was going to be a quick and easy inning for Bonderman. Single by Bruce, walk to Hanahan. Two-run double for Izturis, who had 3 RBIs on the season coming into today. Has 3 more today. Now an intentional walk for the second time this afternoon to Hannigan. Here comes Latos.
I'm surprised that they're even going to leave Bonderman in right here to pitch to Latos. It was this matchup that really turned the ball game around. Last inning, they walked Ryan Hannigan right in front of Latos, and he beat him with a double. Bonderman is out of gas. I mean, there is no question about that.
Latos gets under this one. Ackley comes on, and the inning is over. But the Reds follow a 3-run fourth with a 2-run fifth. Now lead 6-3. Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Honda dealers. Let's take a look at this afternoon's Honda game summary. As they did last night, Seattle strikes in the first. Today, a 2-run homer by Kyle Seager, his 13th of the year. They led 2-0. They had a run in the third to go up 3-0. They had the 3-1 rather. The Reds get this run in the second to make it 2-1. Jay Bruce gets across in the base hit into right by Izturis. Big blow is right here. Matt Latos, 2-run double in the bottom of the fourth. Tied the game at 3. Hanahan and Hannigan score. Then Chu delivers a base hit into center, scoring Latos, giving the Reds a 4-3 lead. Then in the bottom of the fifth inning, Izturis comes through for the second time today. Plating a pair, Bruce and Hanahan again. And the Reds have scored 5 unanswered and now lead 6-3 through 5. That's today's Honda game summary. Cesar Izturis had not made a start since he had that 3-hit game out in Oakland. Now he has a 3 RBI game here today. Here's today's IGS bringing the energy feature for this afternoon's game. Matt Latos, his last 4 games and his strikeout total Had that 13er that's tied a career high out at Arizona on the 23rd. 9 more of them today. Came in averaging, as Chris talked about, a strikeout an inning this year. And he'll get a first pitch out here off the bat of Mike Zunino on his 95th pitch. Well, that's what he'd love to see. Batter will be Dustin Ackley. So 95 pitches now through 5 1/3. Ackley a double his last time. He's 1 for 2. Only 23 years old. Played in the big leagues. Played at AAA Tacoma this year. Left as a second baseman. Came back as an outfielder. Brendan Ryan waits on deck. Lato's now working with a 3-run advantage. One of the 2 Tar Heels on this team. Cal Seager had the home run earlier. Ackley, the batter now, both wore the blue of UNC, the Tar Heels, the powder blue, if you will. Ackley was a first-round pick in 2009 and the second pick overall. Cal Seager, he's 25. Seager's also 25. He was a third-round pick in 2009. College teammates become big league teammates here in Seattle. Shoe chasing, he's not going to get it. That's going to fall for a base hit. Second hit of the game for Dustin Ackley. Seattle has kept its bullpen going. Carter Capps, who had been up and throwing, continues to throw, and now out of the dugout, Nick Franklin, who had that first inning 2-run homer last night for Seattle, is in the on-deck circle. He will bat for Bonderman, unless the Reds can induce Brendan Ryan to hit into a double play right here. He gaps this one to left center field. Robinson over to cut it off. Runner toward third is going to be waved around. His Turris throw home, not in time. 6-4.
Well, second time in the ball game that Derek Robinson went over to a ball that went into left center field gap, and he ends up dropping the baseball. He went down to pick that ball up, and he picked it up and then dropped it, and that gave the third base coach Robbie Thompson just enough of a look that he was going to be able to score. Dustin Ackley, center fielder, runs well, coming around from third base. Watch this play right here. He just couldn't get it. And that little move right there is what enabled that run to come in.
Brian Price now will go to the mound. You mentioned the name of Robbie Thompson down at third base. He's the bench coach. Well, he's not at third base today. It's Jeff Datz, who is their normal third base coach. He was there last night. He's the bench coach of this team. That is actually Darren Brown, who is coaching at third today. Jeff Datz is their regular third base coach. There's Robbie Thompson. He and Dusty Baker are great friends. In fact, Dusty called him one of his favorite players of all time back with his San Francisco clubs. He played for Dusty 93 through 96. Dusty's first 4 years as a manager of the Giants. The last 4 years of the big league career of Robbie Thompson. He said he was as heads up a player during the game as anyone he's ever managed, and he is fully confident. This is Dusty Baker talking now, that Robbie Thompson will make a great big league manager one day. This is Nick Franklin batting for Bonderman, who goes 5, allows 6 runs, 7 hits to the Reds. He can still be the winner and the loser in this game. Big night last night for Franklin. He went 1 for 4, including this first inning 2-run homer into the moon deck against Mike Leake. His 5th home run of the year. He represents the tying run here in the 6th. Reds had scored 5 unanswered. Seattle scored 1 time here in this inning. On a check swing, Franklin is out. They appeal down to third, get the call from Hunter Wendelstedt.
Well, usually when you see it the second time, they almost always go. Hunter Wendelstedt gets it right there.
10 of them now in terms of strikeouts.
3 of the 10 have come from that number 9 spot in the order.
Yeah. 3rd time this year he's hit double figures in strikeouts. Again, he equaled his career high when he fanned 13 Diamondbacks in June the 23rd. Now it's Brad Miller with a runner at second, 2 out.
This crowd looking for some pizza. Free pizza.
Reds have never done it with 1 pitcher getting the 11 strikeout mark. Lato's trying to accomplish that here today. Appeal. This time Mr. Wendelstedt says no. Much to the despair of this big crowd. They want free pizza. Lato's about to throw the 110th pitch of the game, which would equal his season high. He did that 2 starts ago against the D-backs.
You know, it's kind of a strange energy that takes over this ballpark when there are 10 strikeouts and you're waiting for number 11. The chant that you've never heard earlier in the game, rhythmic clapping. It'd be like the old Roman Coliseum
growling stomachs.
Waiting for the pizza to be released on the Gladiators.
Got it. Latos gets number 11. This big crowd thrilled with the fact that they get free pizza. And the inning comes to an end. Enjoy fun in the sun this baseball season in the Kroger Bleachers here at Great American Ballpark. Kroger Bleachers is the place to catch all the Reds action. Plus, for additional savings, plan a group outing of 25 or more. Enjoy the party with your family and friends in the Kroger Bleachers. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS. You can visit select Kroger locations or log on to reds.com/tickets today. 6-4 Reds as we play into the bottom of the 6th inning here at Great American Ballpark. Latos numbers 10 and 11 on the strikeout column to get through the top of the 6th. Gets the pinch hitter Franklin. And then Brad Miller swings at that breaking ball in the dirt. A performance Honda Exmo. Latos' 3rd time this year. He's hit double digits in strikeouts. Number 11 for him today against 4 walks, one of which has been intentional. 112 pitches. New pitcher on now is Carter Capps of the M's. Capps appearing for the 31st time. High ERA, 5.97, 2-2 on the year. Giving up 41 hits in 31 2/3 innings. And touched up for 9 home run balls. That's about 1 every 3 innings. He's walked 9. He's struck out 40. Opponents hitting over 300 against him. He has not been very good as of late.
Well, they like his stuff, though. He's only 22 years old. Young man from Kinston, North Carolina. He was a backup catcher in high school. And he went to Mount Olive College and ended up winning 24 games in a row as a pitcher, and then ended up going to the Cape Cod League and got the attention of the scouts there. That's a Schinberger.
Off the body of Capps, and Chu's going to beat it out. Second hit of the day for Chu. We'll take a look at that one again and just see where that caught Capps exactly off the lumbar of Chu.
Like I say, well, you really got him on the foot. I thought it got him a little higher than that. So not a true Schinberger in the real definition of the word, if there is such a word.
Right foot, right ankle area, I guess, is where that hit. Leadoff man on. Chu 2 for 4. So here's Robinson. Base hit in the third. He's 1 for 3. Seattle starter Jeremy Bonderman went 5, allowed 6 runs, 7 hits, walked 5, 2 of which were intentional. Struck out 4 through 95 pitches. Cannot win, can only be the loser in this game. Reds now have 8 hits. Picked up only 6 the entire game last night. Playing in the bottom of the 6th. Reds leading 6-4. Trying to even this series. Send it to a deciding game tomorrow afternoon at 1:10. Saunders for the first out of the inning. Remember, after every Reds game, Fox Sports Ohio will break it all down for you. That's Reds Live Post Game, brought to you by King's Honda and the King's Auto Mall. We invite you to visit KingsHondaUSA.com. First comments from Dusty Baker right here on Reds Live Post Game. Reds should win. Jeff Porcaro will have a guest down on the field. Make sure you stay with us afterwards. Reds trailed early in this game 2-0 and 3-1. Now lead 6-4, batting in the 6th. Votto today is 0 for 2 with a walk. Walk means he's been on base now in 21 straight games. Leads all of the big leagues with 61 walks. Phillips waiting on deck. Chew an infield hit to start the inning on a smash off the leg of the pitcher. Robinson flied out. Now Votto lines out, headed toward the center field area, and Brendan Ryan was right there to cut it off.
Joey Votto had a pretty good swing at it, so let's take a look at this Mazda pitch by pitch. Carter Capps trying to throw fastballs early in the count. He misses inside there. That looked like a pretty good one, but not so good. Now a 2-1 count. Joey Votto gets one centered. I mean, a line shot right at the shortstop, but nothing to show for it. Hardest hit ball that Votto has had today.
No 2 out for Phillips. Brandon today 0 for 3. For his last 11 for Brandon Phillips since he hit that 2-run homer in the bottom of the 6th inning on Tuesday against the Giants as part of Homer Bailey's no-hitter. Won that game 3-0. That gave Homer a little more breathing room. I'll break that with a ball hit into left field. It drops in front of Michael Saunders for a hit. And Phillips to the board. Second hit of the inning for the Reds. The 9th of the day.
Well, Brandon Phillips has always been a good low ball hitter. Our Munchin's Furniture slow-mo shows you how good. That ball was down around the shoe tops. Look at the catcher back there. Zunino is ready to block that ball.
So now it's Bruce. Jay has scored a pair of runs today. Lined out in the 4th. Singled sharply into center as last time. And he'll shoot one to left center here. That will get another Reds run on the board all the way to the wall. Chu scores. Here comes Phillips around. He will score with a head-first slide on a double by Jay Bruce, giving him 2 more RBIs. 58 on the year. And the Reds up the lead now to 8-4.
You know, Jay Bruce gets hot and cold, and I just had a feeling earlier in the ball game when he walked and then hit a line drive to right field that he might be seeing the ball a little bit better. His last 2 at-bats have borne that out. A base hit up the middle, this rocket shot between left and center, and he picks up double number 26 on the year.
Bruce started the day tied for 2nd in the league in 2 base hits. That's his 26th double of the year. He approaches the 60 RBI mark. It's also his 45th extra base hit of the year for Jay, 2nd only to Carlos Gonzalez of Colorado. The Reds have had any number of 2-out hits today. There's another one by Hanahan into left. Bruce being waved around. Saunders' throw is off the line and cut off, and they throw behind Hanahan, who is out at first base. Morales put the tag on. Hanahan stood still for a moment, has to pay for it. But the Reds come up with 3. Nine-4 Reds after a 3-run bottom of the 6th inning. They now their largest lead of the game at 5. Matt Latos leads the game. New pitcher on his Manny Parr. What a day for Latos, pitching wise and hitting wise.
Well, you're not kidding about that. To think that the Reds have picked up, what, 5 runs batted in this ball game from Matt Latos and Cesar Azuris, a guy that hardly ever gets to play. So those guys at the bat in the bottom of the lineup have done a lot of damage. Last night he came in for an inning and a third. Manny Parra back in today for outing number 25.
Very nice job last night by Manny Parra. Allowed a hit, but then induced a double play ball. Got Seager to start the 9th inning. Parra comes into this game having retired 16 of the last 18 batters he has faced. And with that appearance last night, has now made 12 consecutive scoreless appearances as he enters action here today. Matt Latos exits. He can win. He cannot lose. 6 innings, 4 runs, 6 hits, so he does not get credit for a quality start. 4 walks and 11 strikeouts, second most he's had in a game this year. He allowed the home run ball early to Kyle Seager, threw a wild pitch. He can come away with his 8th win. Started the day with a 3.03 ERA, Matt Latos. And he leaves this game with an ERA of 3.18. He'll have one more start before the All-Star break. Chavez is chewed up right there by Manny Parra for the first out.
Pretty good breaking ball right here by Manny Parra.
Lefty's hitting just 171 against Manny this year.
And it's that slider that does it.
Let's go down to Jim Day. He has an update on the All-Stars, which have recently been named.
Well, they're naming the National League All-Stars as we speak, and indeed Joey Votto is your starting first baseman for the National League All-Star team, his 4th selection, and Brandon Phillips, who was in a tight race down the stretch, is your National League All-Star starter at second base. It's been a long time since that has happened. Congratulations to Joey and Brandon. We'll let you know if any reserves are named Cincinnati Reds.
All right, thank you, Jim Day. Great news indeed. As Joey Votto once again is elected as the starting first baseman for the National League team. Brandon Phillips, his first ever pick as the starting second baseman. Brandon snubbed last year, gets the All-Star nod this year. Votto becomes the first Reds player to earn consecutive fan-elected starts in the All-Star game since Barry Larkin did it in 1999 and 2000. Phillips, meanwhile, becomes the first Reds second baseman devoted to the All-Star game as a starter since Joe Morgan did it 7 straight years from 72 to 78. And in addition, Votto and Phillips become only the 5th set of teammates to earn fan-elected starts at first and second base, the first time ever for the Reds. You heard Jim Day say it was a tight race down the stretch at second base with Matt Carpenter of the Cardinals. But Phillips prevails. Votto led all the way. Really, Phillips did too, but his race got closer at the end. The Reds will have the right side represented well on the infield in New York for the Major League All-Star game. Base hit here with 1 out for Seager. Batter will be Kendrys Morales. Reds up 9-4 here in the 7th. Votto has now been an All-Star for the National League side 4 straight years. Brandon Phillips gets his 3rd nod. He was with the team in 10 and 11 as a reserve. Missed last year. Voted in this year. Congratulations to those two, and hopefully maybe a pitcher or so. Remember, Aroldis Chapman was picked last year as a reserve. Jay Bruce was picked as a reserve last year. is a switch hitter, bats from the right side. He's 0 for 3 in this game. Swing and a miss. Ball gets away. Down to second base goes Seager. Goes to the wild pitch on Manny Parra. Parra last night with Morales up there induced the double play ball.
You know, being an all-star is really quite an honor, but it's nice to let these guys know before they go on this road trip. Because if you consider what it means to them personally from a standpoint of travel, the Reds leave tomorrow to go to Milwaukee and then to Atlanta before the All-Star break. That will start a week from tomorrow.
Right.
And then right from Sunday in Atlanta, those guys that are on the All-Star team are going to have to board a plane and head from Atlanta to New York. And that means if you're Joey Votto or Brandon Phillips, you've got to bring extra clothes. You've got to pack extra. You've got to now notify all of your friends and family that are maybe considering going to that ball game and trying to figure out how to get them tickets, logistics of getting them there, and so on. So it is quite an honor. But along the line, you see that there's a lot to do about it. And some of those players that do end up at the All-Star game end up thinking, man, this is 3 days of stress.
Sure. Well, the home run derby is Monday night. They're all there for that, whether they participate or not.
Right.
The game is Tuesday. Then they'll get to wherever they need to go on Wednesday. Have an off day on Thursday unless they're traveling to go start on Friday.
Unless the team is having a workout, which they usually do.
Votto stays down on this ground ball by Saunders. Race to the base, and the All-Star wins it. And the Mariners strand a runner in the top of the 7th. Join the Reds Hall of Fame and Museum as a family today. For only $85, you can join as a family and receive 4 game tickets, unlimited Hall of Fame admission, statues of Lombardi, Nuxall, Kluszewski, and Robinson, 2 ballpark tour passes, batting cage passes, and much more. For information on the Reds Hall of Fame and Museum's All-Star membership, visit redsmuseum.org. 9-4 Reds, bottom of the 7th. Carter Capps back to work. One more note on the elections of Votto and Phillips as starters for the 2013 National League All-Star Game. He played in New York on July the 16th. It's the first time that 2 Reds have started in the game since 1995, when Barry Larkin at short and Ron Gant in the outfield started for the National League side. What, some 18 years ago. Bruce there, of course, hopes to join his teammate Joey Votto. Remember the 2013 National League squad. He was with the team last year. This Turris bidding for a third hit, bounces out to the shortstop. His Turris had not played since he had that 3-hit game week and a half ago in Oakland. Had not played, didn't play at all in the Texas series, didn't play at all in the San Francisco series, didn't play last night. Comes in today and has 2 hits and 3 runs batted in. That's keeping yourself ready. Here's Hannigan. He's 0 for 1 with a pair of intentional walks given to him by Jeremy Bonderman. Worked the second time in the 5th, but it burned the Mariners in the 4th inning when Latos had the 2-run double and Chu an RBI single. Part of that 3-run 4th inning. Reds have scored in 4 different innings here today against Eric Wedge's team. Cozart on deck to bat for Parra. Sam LeCure is throwing in the Reds bullpen. Sam worked to the final 2 batters of the top of the 9th inning here last night. Reds went 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position last night. Today, quite a turnaround. 6 for 12. They came into this series middle of the pack in the league, 7th at 248. Big day already today. 6 for 12. Manny Parra now adds to that consecutive scoreless game streak for his total. Now 13 consecutive scoreless appearances with a no-run 1-hit 7th. Right field and Chavez. 2 out. Now Cozart will bat for Manny Parra. Cozart's been the everyday shortstop most of this year. Comes into the game hitting .240 with 7 home runs, 33 runs batted in. Started at shortstop last night, was hitless in 4. One for his last 12 as he stands in there. We have another All-Star update. Let's go to Jim Day. Jimbo, what do you have?
They just announced the National League pitchers, and there are no starting pitchers for the Reds that made the All-Star team, but Aroldis Chapman was selected, his 2nd All-Star selection.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Diving to his right, Chavez takes a potential hit away from Zach Cozart, and for the first time in this game, the Reds go in order. That's worth another look for sure. Ohio has been brought to you by Cincinnati Children's Hospital, now ranked the #1 pediatric cancer center in the country according to U.S. News and World Report's 2013 Best Children's Hospitals. And by Chevy. Stop into your Tri-State Chevy dealer today and check out their full line of fuel-efficient vehicles. 9-4 Reds as we head to the 8th inning. Let's go back now to Jim Day for a further All-Star update.
Well, they just announced Bruce Bochy's reserves for the National League All-Star Club, and no other Reds are listed on that. Jay Bruce was certainly a possibility. He leads many right fielders in a lot of offensive categories, but he does not make it this year. So it will be Votto, Phillips, and Chapman representing the Reds in New York City.
All right, thank you, Jim. Chapman makes his second straight appearance. We said Phillips his third, Votto his fourth All-Star selection.
You know, with the way that they there's Zach Kozar at shortstop, but you know, with the way they do the name in the All-Star team, you know, we find out, the fans and the announcers, as the same time the players find out. I mean, Aroldis Chapman sat down in the bullpen, wondered what all the ruckus was. Probably looked up at the scoreboard and said, "Hey, I'm an All-Star."
Well, the other two get elected. Chapman gets in by the strength of 20 saves and a 2.57 ERA, but with 59 strikeouts in 35 innings. The Reds have 3 All-Stars for 2013. And there's always the possibility of someone else being named to the team. The reserves were named for the National League. No other Reds were picked. But barring injury.
Well, there are some players that are named on that National League starting team, I believe, that are on the disabled list.
Three pairs of teammates for starters in the National League lineup. We'll get a chance to take a look at that before we leave today. Joining Phillips and Votto on the right side. Manny Parr, 1 inning, no runs, 1 hit. Now it's Sam LeCure. A little flare into right field by Zunino, and he has himself his first hit of this series.
Brandon can't help stop laughing at himself on that one. He was afraid that Zunino may think about taking 2, so he really hustled over there to get that ball. When he did get to it, he slapped it between his leg backwards, and then he slapped it between his legs forwards. Whoops. Whoops. You know the old saying, follow it around to see what it eats? That would apply.
Hit number 8 for the Mariners. Here's Dustin Ackley. Here's a look at those National League starters for the All-Star game. 3 pairs of teammates. Carlos Beltran, Yadier Molina of the Cardinals. Of course, Phillips and Votto of the Reds. We told you about that. Carlos Gonzalez and Troy Tulowitzki of the Rockies. Justin Upton in his first year with the Braves. David Wright will start at third in New York. The game being played at Citi Field. Tulowitzki, I believe, is
he's on the
right now.
He's on the disabled list. He's been on the disabled list since the middle of June with a fractured rib in his rib cage. In fact, they had hoped to get him back sometime very shortly, but I don't know whether he'll opt to go and play in that ball game or maybe take the conservative approach. If that's the case, obviously they'll name another infielder to back him up.
3-1. Drive to center will send Chu racing back. He'll have room and haul that long fly ball in by Dustin Ackley for the first out of the 8th. Now Brian Price will head to the mound again. Talk with Sam LeCure. All right, we have still another All-Star update. So once again, Jim Day.
Well, in recent years, they've been given the final 5 is what they call it, where the fans vote for the final member of the All-Star team. And they just announced that in the National League, and no Red is a part of that either. The final 5 are Ian Desmond, Freddie Freeman, Adrian Gonzalez, Hunter Pence, and the guy that wasn't named as a starter or a reserve, but many people have been pushing for him to be in the All-Star game. Yasiel Puig, the youngster from the Dodgers, is amongst the final 5, so the fans do have a chance to vote him in, but no other Reds.
All right, thank you, Jim. We do understand that off this Seattle club, Hisashi Iwakuma and Felix Hernandez have been named to the American League team, a couple of their starters. Congratulations to those 2 young men. Seattle does have action in their bullpen. A right-hander, Danny Farquhar, is throwing. This is Brendan Ryan, who's 1 for 2 with a walk today. Seattle batting in the top of the 8th. Reds in front 9-4. On this All-Star announcement Saturday, July the 6th. 10 days from now, Major League All-Star game in New York.
Yeah, you get to wondering, though, this is the trade deadline month. It doesn't happen until the very end of the year. Here are the American League All-Stars.
Take a look at those. These are the starters. Mike Trout of the Angels. Jones is out in center field of the Baltimore Orioles. What a great year he has had. Bautista, Cabrera, Triple Crown winner from a year ago. J.J. Hardy, a teammate of Jones. Cano. You get a chance really to finish that list of American leaguers that were also elected to start, as Ryan draws a walk, putting 2 on with 1 out. Here's the rest of those American League starters. Chris Davis, what a great year he is having. 3 Baltimore Orioles in the starting lineup. Joe Mauer from Minnesota, and David Ortiz will be the DH. So 3 Baltimore Orioles on a Baltimore team that is 5.5 out in the AL East behind the Red Sox. They've had some great individual first halves, haven't they? Wow. A couple of ex-Reds have also been named to the All-Star teams. One in the American League, Edwin Encarnacion for Toronto. Travis Wood of the Cubs. Congratulations to those 2. Edwin certainly turned his career around once he went to the American League.
Well, you're not kidding about that. In fact, it didn't all happen at one time for Edwin Encarnacion. There was a time that with Toronto, the team he's with right now, they designated him for assignment. They had given up on him, and he came back, played hard, and now he's an all-star. Congratulations to Edwin.
Justin Smoke is batting here for Carter Capps. Smoke on the year hitting .259 with 6 home runs, 13 runs batted in. He's a switch hitter batting from the left side. He was our opening day first baseman. He spent some time on the disabled list this year with a strained right oblique most of the month of June. This is the first time we've seen him in this series. Seattle will employ a new pitcher come the bottom of the 8th.
He looks like he's geared for that fastball, and he's seen 2 back-to-back breaking balls from Sam LeCure. Real slow hooks.
Pirates meanwhile batting in the top of the 9th. Cubs leading 4-1 in that game, so we've got a good combination going. Pirates trailing, Reds leading, both late. Stays the way it is right now. The Reds could be 3.5 out come the end of the day of baseball. Strike 3 called, says Alan Porter. And Smoke, bat in hand, heads back to the dugout.
This is Sam LeCure's calling card right there. That little 2-seamer that he starts right at the belly button of a left-handed hitter, and it comes right back to touch the inside corner. You know, Sam LeCure is having an all-star caliber year, but rarely do you ever see a middle reliever picked to represent a ball club on an all-star team. But if you were to pick another pitcher out of the Reds bullpen, Sam LeCure is as deserving as anybody around the league.
Dusty Baker was asked today in his pregame press conference what Reds player won't make the all-star team that he figures should. Quickly, one name came out of his mouth: Sam LeCure.
Yep.
Trying to get the final out of the 8th inning, dealing here with Brad Miller. Miller in this game over 2 with a pair of walks. Mariners put 2 on in this inning. A leadoff single to right by Zunino, a little flare, and a walk to Brendan Ryan. Reds lead 9-4, 8th inning. Strike makes it 2-1. Cardinals won earlier today with a run on the bottom of the 9th at home to defeat the Miami Marlins 5-4. Now the Cubs are an out away from defeating the Pirates at Wrigley Field. That game's 4-1 in the top of the 9th with 2 out. From 2-0 to 2-2. Just looking here. Chapman last worked an inning on Wednesday. Even at a 4-run or 5-run game, conceivably, you see him working in the 9th. This being Saturday. Full count. Alfredo Simon answers that question as he is up and throwing in the Cincinnati bullpen. Reds pitchers have 14 strikeouts today. Runners on the move, and that 3-2 pitch misses inside. LeCure looked like he thought it was a strike. Here comes Dusty Baker immediately out of the dugout. 2 walks in the inning for LeCure. He's not going to get a chance to finish this 8th inning. Alfredo Simon has been throwing in the bullpen. Dusty will get together with the infield and the battery, take the ball from Sam LeCure, and we have our Skyline Chili call to the bullpen. Out is LeCure, in is Alfredo Simon here in the top of the 8th inning. We'll be back in a moment. Hitting the road. Take Fox Sports Ohio's coverage of the Reds with you in 2013. MLB.TV celebrating 11 years. So make sure you catch every Reds out of market game live online or on your favorite mobile devices in HD quality with MLB.TV Premium. Visit Reds.com to order. Get all the details. MLB.TV. Baseball everywhere. The pitcher is Alfredo Simon. Becomes the 4th pitcher used by Dusty Baker today.
Throwing the ball real well is Alfredo. The earned run average coming down. That very tidy 219 batting average against. He just does not give up very much. But he needs some strikes right here with the bases loaded.
They have the tying run on deck. Endy Chavez, left-handed batter against the righty Simon. Remember, Simon worked in the American League with Baltimore for years. Faces Endy Chavez here. Chavez is 1 for 2 lifetime against Simon with a double. Shoots this ball into left center, but Robinson is there, and the Mariners leave the bases loaded and have stranded 10 in this game. afternoon's Nissan drive of the game. It occurred in the bottom of the 5th inning with Cesar Izturis at the plate. He'd already driven in a run back in the 2nd. This one, a 2-run double in the bottom of the 5th that made it 6-3 in favor of the Reds as he plated Bruce and Hanahan. Jack with a slide across the dish. Big hit there for Cesar Izturis. A 2-hit, 3 RBI game. And that one, our Nissan drive of the game. Playing to the bottom of the 8th inning. New pitcher on for the Reds. There's Izturis. And there's Danny Farquhar, the new pitcher on for the Seattle club. Caps goes 2 innings. Allows 3 runs on 4 hits. Didn't walk anybody, didn't strike out anyone, and 26-year-old Danny Farquhar, spells that last name Farquhar, 26-year-old out of Florida, into the game. He pitched collegiately down in Louisiana, but not at the baseball powerhouse LSU, but rather at the University of Louisiana Lafayette. Louisiana. He gets the top of the Reds order. Chu, Robinson, and Votto. Farquhar has taken a circuitous route to get to the big leagues with Seattle. Drafted by Toronto, traded by Toronto to Oakland, traded by Oakland back to Toronto, selected off waivers by Oakland, selected off waivers by the Yankees, then traded by the Yankees to Seattle for Ichiro. Trading deadline last year.
So he was property 2 times of Oakland. He was property 2 times of Toronto.
Yeah.
Can't you see the general manager right there plucking the petals out of a flower? We like you. We like you not. We like you. We like you not.
Probably what he was thinking. Made his big league debut a couple of years ago with the Blue Jays, appearing in 3 games. This year he's been at AAA Tacoma out of their bullpen, throwing pretty well. Ooh, that's a potential double play ball that goes under the glove of Miller and out into right. Then he misplays the ball and allows the runners to move to 2nd and 3rd. Had the makings of a double play ball hit to the left of Brad Miller. Then it gets by him, misplayed somewhat by Andy Chavez. End result is the Reds have them at 2nd and 3rd with nobody out.
Yeah, a couple of errors on the play. There's no doubt this is an error. He just wants to rush it a little bit. Before the ball gets in his glove, he's already thinking about throwing that ball to shortstop to start the double play. But he forgot one important thing. That would be the baseball. Well, so did Andy Chavez out there in right field.
So 2 errors charged on the play. 1 to Miller at 2nd, 1 to Chavez in right. And at 2nd and 3rd with nobody out, Votto has walked intentionally. The 3rd intentional pass given to the Reds this afternoon. Means that Phillips will have an opportunity with the bases loaded, and he has been very good in that situation this year. There's the intentional walk. The 12th time this year that Votto has been walked intentionally.
That is how many intentional walks the Mariners have given up as a team. So they're not used to doing it.
There's Phillips talking about his prowess with the bases loaded this year. 7 for 9. with the bases loaded in 2013, Brandon Phillips. Career-wise, very, very good also. In case you're wondering, the Reds have a pair of grand slams this year. One by Paul, a pinch hit shot against the Nationals. One by Brandon Phillips. That was at Wrigley Field back in early June. 5 of them in his career. He's down a strike here. A walk, 2 errors, an intentional walk. Bases loaded without the benefit of a hit. Infield in. Phillips hits it to right, slicing away from Chavez, and he makes the catch on the run. Chu will tag and score. Robinson will tag and move to third. Phillips gets the RBI, number 64. The Reds hit double figures in runs. They now lead 10-4.
Boy, Brandon hit it well. They had a ball that was up over the plate, takes it the other way. Chavez gets over there, makes a nice running catch. So he robs Brandon of an extra base hit, but Brandon still gets the RBI.
So first and third with 1 out for Jay Bruce. Big 2-run double back in the 6th inning. His first hit with runners in scoring position since the 11th of June, almost a month ago, but only 15 at bats, so don't make too much out of that. Two RBIs in this game put Jay at 58. He's right on the heels of his teammate Phillips. Hard to the mound, knocked down. They throw to the plate, safe. Robinson got in there ahead of the tag of Zunino. Very quick. Robinson did not slide, but he did get in there, and Eric Wedge will come out and discuss with Alan Porter, the home plate umpire. Farquhar looked around. First he wanted to go to second. Zunino appeared to holler at him to come home. Time he got the ball and put the tag on, Robinson had flashed across.
Yeah, I don't think that Derek Robinson thought there was going to be a play at the plate. That's why he didn't slide, and looks like he gets his foot right in there. Our Exmo look will take us right to the exact moment.
It'll be ruled as a fielder's choice and a run batted in for Jay, so he gets his 3rd RBI of the game and his 59th of the year. Joey down at second base. Into right. Another hit for Hanahan. His 3rd of this game. That'll get an RBI. Oh, to third goes Bruce as Votto scores. Jack Hanahan has 3 hits, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored today. A big afternoon for Jack Hanahan.
Well, you know, he's sitting in there because they wanted to give Todd Frazier a day off and also get Jack Hanahan some at-bats. And, man, when your guy comes through with 3 hits, you wonder maybe you're going to get more starts out there. He swung the bat very well. Carl Willis Former Reds reliever, former closer for the Minnesota Twins, now the pitching coach for Seattle.
Well, he's been out there a lot this afternoon. Carl Willis. He wore the Reds uniform. 84, 85, 86. Worked out of the bullpen. Teammate of yours?
Yeah, he sure was. In the minor leagues down in Denver and in the major leagues here in Cincinnati. Good guy from down there in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Now Heisey bats for Simone or Simon. Dusty calls him Simone.
A nice grab.
Sure was. Simon faces one batter, Andy Chavez, and gets the out. Heisey, who figures to get a start tomorrow, comes into the game at 184 with 3 home runs. 3 for 11 as a pinch hitter this year. I say he figures to get the start tomorrow based on the fact that Dusty Baker had mentioned yesterday, with the left-hander going tomorrow, Joe Saunders, that Heisey would probably get the start out in left field. That's strike 3. So he heads back to the dugout here. Hannigan comes up. First and third, 2 out. In the third 3 spot of this game, home for the Reds. Leading by the score of 12-4. For 2 with a couple of intentional walks today for Hannigan. Hogan on Drusick throwing in the Reds bullpen. Into right. This will add to the Reds lead. They've hit 13 as Bruce will score. Hannigan trying to stretch it and does into a double. Hanahan over to third. 5 doubles in this game now for Cincinnati. They will hit around in this inning. The 9th man to come to the plate will be Zach Kozar, who took over at short after pinch hitting back in the 7th. Kozar did a soft liner into right as a pinch hitter back in the 7th and stayed in the game. Took over for his Turris. He bats for the 2nd time today. Reds trailed 3-1 after 3 in this game. Now lead 13-4. Strikeout of Zach Kozar puts an end to a 4-run bottom of the 8th. So we go to the 9th. Reds by 9. moment of the game brought to you by Miller Lite. It occurred in the bottom of the 4th inning. Reds went in trailing 3-1. Matt Latos. They walked Hannigan intentionally to get to the pitcher, and he made him pay big time. A 2-run double to the wall in right center field. Scored Hanahan, scored Hannigan. It's tied the game at 3. Latos would later score on a hit by Chu for the Reds' first lead. Latos and the umpire out there have a little chuckle together. Latos now has 4 RBIs on the year. That is our Miller time moment of the game, brought to you by Miller Lite. So it will not be Chapman in a 9-run game, but rather Logan Ondrusek, who becomes the 5th Reds pitcher.
You know, that moment of laughter out there with Matt Latos and the umpire may have come from the fact that, you know, he hits a double, the umpire comes over and he's going to take his batting gear, like his gloves and his protective sleeve for his arm, and then run him over to Billy Hatcher, the first base coach, and he held his hand out, and Matt Latos thought that he was wanted a 5. Give me 5 for hitting that double. And he realized about halfway through, oops, that's not what he meant out here, and they both got a good laugh out of it. They have to ask him about that after the ball game.
Yeah.
When's the last time you got a high five from an umpire when you got an extra base hit?
If the answer is anything but never, you got to worry about it. Mariners bat now in the 9th. Seager, Morales, and Saunders against the right-hander Logan Ondrusek, who's been up and down a couple of times to Louisville this year. In fact, started the season at AA Pensacola. Last worked on Wednesday against the Giants, 1/3 of an inning. Now he falls behind here, 3-0. Reds closing in on a victory here. They have 13 runs, 13 hits in this game. And now a walk to the leadoff man.
Well, for our John Morrell hot dog play of the game, let's go back in time to 1990. That's Jeffy Barfield at the plate. And Ken Griffey Jr. up on the wall like Spider-Man. That's a catch that if you've ever seen it once, you'll always remember it. And the young Ken Griffey Jr. comes back with the baseball, and that's our hot dog play of the game.
There he is. Oh, no, that's not him. Just a fan. Morales bats. He's 0 for 4 in this game. Nothing out of 8 in the series. Way up in the air to the shortstop. And Cozart has it for the first out of the 9th. Diving stop. Phillips from his knees. The All-Star makes the play. Now fitting on the day that Brandon Phillips is elected as the starting second baseman. He flashes some leather here.
Or he throws the crowd every time he goes belly out to catch a ground ball. And more often than not, if you hit the ball on the right side of that AT CIN, it's going to be caught. Look at his eyes on the baseball right there. Man, oh man. That's a player.
And now the Reds are not away from a win. Mike Zunino against Logan Ondrusek. No throw by Hannigan. That's going to be a wild pitch on the Reds right-hander. Now Seager's at third base with 2 out. Tomorrow in the 110 game, Bronson Arroyo guns for his 8th win. Lefty Joe Saunders, who is 6-8, will pitch for Seattle. 110 game, 12:30 with Reds Live. Hanahan got him. Reds win. This series is even at a game apiece as the Reds put some pretty good pitching together. At least the strikeout numbers were very good for Matt Latos. 13 runs on 13 hits today, and they win it by the final 13-4. So a good afternoon for the Reds. They win for the 50th time this year. They're now 50-37. We'll come back with more in a moment as we go to break. Let's take one more look at the 27th out here this afternoon.